Well, hey, y'all, it's life coach and licensed therapist Robin May, and I am back for part two of our three-part series called Heal Well. If this is your first time here, welcome to my YouTube channel. I am so happy that you're here. If you have been here before, I am so glad you are back. Listen, if you have not watched part one of this three-part series, stop this video, go back and watch part one because it all ties in together. So I want to set the foundation for you from part one so that you can then understand part two. And listen, I am committed to creating safe spaces for driven and purposeful women. But those same driven and purposeful women are often overworked and overwhelmed. And so I am committed to helping dope women just like you identify what it's going to take for you to live the life you long for. And so, as promised, this three-part series is helping you heal well. I shared in part one that what prompted this was a most recent loss I had, and I am really doing this series even in honor of my amazing virtual assistant, Dee. She is very missed and has had a great impact on my life. And so after losing her unexpectedly, I recognize that we can heal, but not necessarily heal well. So as I am grieving her and all the significant loss I personally have experienced in the last 2 years, and I know you have experienced significant loss in the last 2 years or well beyond that time, I want to make sure that we are healing well. Listen, if you've been rocking with me for a while, you know I can't even front. I am looking down in my notes. I can't remember this stuff off the top of my head. And so if you see me looking down and you're new here, girl, that's what I'm doing. All right, so I've already given you a recap. All right, so part one, we talked about the sneaky way grief shows up. Grief can be sneaky. It doesn't follow rules. It's not neat. It's messy. It comes in, it touches stuff, it messes with stuff, and it is just sometimes downright disrespectful. But the truth is, grief is the price we pay for love. It's the price we pay for living life fully. And so today, I am going to talk to you about what you can expect as you go on the journey towards healing. So remember, I empathize, I normalize, and I strategize. And so I want to normalize for you some of the things that can come up on your journey towards healing. Remember, your journey is not my journey, but there are some common things that show up. But I want to tell you guys a quick story. A few months ago, I was doing what I do, what many of you do. I was being Uber mom, and I'm sick of it, okay? I'm sick of being Uber mom. Don't worry about it. I just had a moment. Okay, so I was being Uber mom, and my husband and I, my handsome husband Lee, we pastor a church here in our local area. And so the church was having a big event, right? And I was being Uber mom because really I wanted my husband to do all that running around, but he had to go pastor and do what he had to do as a pastor. I mean, geez. So anyway, I was charged with picking up my oldest daughter. I think he had the youngest. I had the middle baby. Oh, that's what it was. I had the middle baby. I had to take her to her track meet. Then I had to pick up the older. So anyway, I was being Uber mom. And we were headed to the church event, right? Y'all, we're driving to the church event. I put my GPS on everywhere I go. I don't care if I'm going from my house to the gas station up the street. I put my GPS on for anywhere I go. Number one, because I get lost. I don't care if I've been there 20 times. Can somebody tell me what you think that's about? Like, really, I know I'm a therapist, but can somebody tell me what that's about? I get lost anywhere I go if I don't have on. I know what it is. Never mind. It's what I said in part one. A lot of times, y'all overworked and overwhelmed women, we can be distracted. We can be absent-minded. That's why we got to know when I become extremely absent-minded and forgetful, I know I need to slow down. Anyway. That's not even important. Okay. So I was driving to this location. I had my GPS on. So I realized I was literally 3 minutes away from where the church event was. 3 minutes away. Y'all, my tire started shaking. I realized I was having a flat. I ended up having a flat tire 3 minutes from, we just had to go around the corner and we'd be at the event. And my daughters were like, Mommy, keep going. We're almost there and Daddy can take care of the car. Y'all, I knew better. I knew I needed to pull over on the side of the road and not drive on that rim, because I understood something that my daughters didn't. That although I was only 3 minutes away from my destination, if I had kept driving on that tire, on that rim, I would have done more damage to my car than I intended. Even though I was right there at my destination, if I had kept driving on that rim, I would have done more damage. I already was going to have to get the tire fixed, but then I would have had to get the rim fixed. And beyond that, I don't know what else would have had to get fixed, but I know it would have done more damage. And so I knew I needed to stop for a moment and tend to the tire so that I wouldn't do more damage to the car. Now, sis, you know I'm already preaching. I'm not here to preach to you, but you know I'm already preaching. I want you to understand, on your journey of healing, many times we can be close to a breakthrough. We can be close to our hearts being healed, and we do more damage because we are not tending to ourselves. I want us to understand that often many of the strategies we use to deal with our pain could be damaging us in a way that we are not expecting. When I'm working with clients, I'm not just concerned with the situation. I'm extremely concerned with how they process the situation. I'm extremely concerned with the strategies they use to deal with the situation, because I understand the situation is bad, girl. This is bad, but how you are dealing with it could make this bad thing much worse. And so I don't want you to move past that. I want you to really think about your past life experiences, and I want you to consider, did you do more damage on the journey than needed? So that's why it is very important, very important, very, very important. I'm going to talk about this more next week, but it's very, very important that you are careful about who's in your ear when you're on the path of healing, because you could do more damage than necessary. All right. Now, let me tell you this. We know you can have a level of healing, but not heal well. Remember, I used the analogy of a scab. You can start having the scab that is healing the wound, but then that scab can get infected. And so I want us to give ourselves the space and the grace to not just heal, but to heal well. And while I am a life coach and a licensed therapist, I probably am not your life coach or your licensed therapist. And so I want you to make sure that you take these strategies and tips that I'm sharing and take it to the person that is committed to walking with you in a more intimate way to make sure that these are applicable for you. All right, let's see what else I have in my notes. All right. So normally these conversations about grief and going through grief, people begin to talk about the stages of grief. I'm not going there. You can Google that. Just Google stages of grief. You can find out about that. And that's important. I'm not trying to minimize that, but that's not what I'm really talking about today. But I will say, when it comes to the stages of grief, many times we want things to be neat. We want them to follow a pattern. We want 1 + 1 = 2. And I just want to help you understand. I want to normalize for you. That ain't how grief works, honey. You can be in stage 1, stage 2, find yourself in stage 5, then back in stage 1. And so I want to normalize the journey for you. I know you want it to be neat. I know you don't want it to be messy. I know you want to control it. But part of the process is understanding you can't. I know that's enough for us just to pause there, because as purposeful and driven women, we like to control what's happening. And when it comes to the healing of your heart and the process of grief, you can't whip it into shape, boo. You got to allow yourself to go through the process. And so, like I said, there are some common things that come up. Now, again, your journey is not my journey, but I want you to think about it like this. If you are a teacher and you meet a brand new first-year teacher, there are some things that you can help her to know or to anticipate as she is going on her journey of becoming a teacher. If you are a lawyer, you could give a law student some tips for the LSAT. Don't y'all take the LSAT? If you've been married for longer than 5 years, you could probably give a newlywed some idea of some things that they might anticipate on their journey in marriage. And so that's what I'm doing from a personal and professional experience. I wanted to share with you a few common experiences that come up on our path towards healing. And then next week, I'm going to give you some tips and strategies to help you heal well. All right, so let's go through a few things that you may experience on this journey. I think I have 8 things right here, okay? So let's go through these. If this helps you, will you hit like and will you comment and will you share on your platform these strategies or these common experiences? All right, so number 1, I'm going to start here. Y'all see I'm taking a deep breath because this is a tough one. People get really sensitive about this one, so I got to be careful because I can't talk back and forth with you to really unpack this. So this first one, I want you to hear my heart on it, okay? But this is going to really help. Remember, keep the analogy of me in my car and the tire is flat, and I'm going to keep trying to drive on this flat tire. I'm going to do more damage. So one of the common experiences that come up on the path of healing after grief, remember, was the loss of a significant loved one, the loss of a job, divorce, a health challenge, a friendship that ends, any significant loss. One of the first things that comes up is a feeling of loneliness. Now, before I go any further, if you can relate to that, go ahead and tell me in the chat. I'm going to be in the chat looking at this, or you can DM me on Instagram, Robin May Online. But one of the first things that comes up is loneliness. That's a common experience for people on the path of grief. Now, the reason why I know it is sensitive is because of this. Often what happens is that when there's been a significant loss of any kind, people will respond to you and they're there for you. You know, especially after the death of a loved one, you get food and flowers and text messages and calls and cash apps and just love. People are just loving on you, paper plates and did I say food already? Food. Like people are calling, especially at the very beginning. And I've preached a message on this before, and I like to think about it like this. When you're going on the journey of healing, you get to door A, all these doors, you have to walk through these doors, right? So you get to door A, and it's a whole bunch of people there with you. Then you get to door B, and it's kind of dwindled a little bit. You get to door C. It's dwindled a lot. Then you get to door D and it feels like it's just you and Jesus. And what often happens on our journey towards healing, we begin to focus on the fact that people are not there for me the way they were before, or I'm really by myself, or I'm lonely in this. And we get to door D and we're like so upset because we aren't experiencing the same outpouring. We'll say things like, people just go on about their business. And I want to normalize that a bit because there does come a point on our journey of healing that part of the process is our own process. So it's not that people don't love you. It's not that people don't want to be there for you. But there is a natural rhythm of people returning to their day-to-day functionings. Now, you'll always have people who love you, who check on you, who want to be there for you. That's why if you do a smoke signal and you say, hey, I need some help, there's going to be people who respond. But you know this, there have been people in your life who've had a significant loss and you really showed up for them, but then you even got back into your natural rhythm of life. And one of the ways that I really understood this was even when our family lost my daddy. And my immediate family is rather small. It's just me, my mom, and my sister and my dad, our immediate family. And even with me, my mom, and my sister, how we each process the loss of my daddy is personal. We're there for one another, but there's a part of the journey that's personal. My mom lost her husband. My sister is single. She lost the man in her life. I was the youngest. I lost my daddy, who would always be the one like, I got you, baby. And so we each had our own personal journey. So I'm spending some time on this first one on loneliness because I want you to really understand that how you process that loneliness is going to be important, that you don't process it as abandonment, but that you process it as the normal rhythms of life. Now, there might be, I'm going to be fair, there might be some people who you had an expectation of that did not come through, and that's worth processing with your therapist. But on the general sense, I want you to process that loneliness as a part of the journey, your own individual process with that significant loss. Okay. So that's number one. Okay. Number two, what often comes up, a common experience after a significant loss, girl, is fear. You don't know what to expect. Things have changed. The fear of the unknown. What's on the other side of this? Am I ever going to get back to normal? Am I ever going to be okay? Is my heart ever going to stop breaking? Am I ever going to be able to look at that situation again? Am I ever going to be able to go to that event again? Am I ever going to be able to find another job again? Am I ever going to have a significant relationship again? All of this fear comes up. I don't know what to expect on the other side. And I just want to normalize that for you, sis. It is absolutely normal after you've experienced significant loss to be afraid of what's to come. Girl, you ain't crazy. It is normal. So one is loneliness. Two is a fear that rises up. Three, now this is an interesting one. And I am sharing again from a personal and a professional point of view. This is the many times I've had to walk through significant loss, and baby, the hundreds of people that I have helped to walk through a significant loss. The third thing that comes up, y'all, is a willingness to compromise beyond what's reasonable. So this often happens after a major, like when it's a possible job loss, and then you end up losing the job, the end of a relationship, a romantic relationship, the end of a friendship, because you so desperately don't want things to change. And remember, number two, you're so afraid of the unknown. There are times you might find yourself willing to compromise beyond what you know is reasonable. You start to contemplate, okay, so maybe I should just tell him it's okay. I'm okay if he decides that he wants to do something that I think is inappropriate. I just don't want things to change. I'll just keep praying about it. You know what? I'll just take the pay cut. Because I don't know if I can find another job. You begin to find yourself willing to compromise beyond what you know is reasonable for you. So if that comes up for you, I want to normalize it for you. You are not crazy. Number 4. You begin to question, what does any of this even mean? Y'all, this happens all the time. What does any of this even mean? And what is this? Life in general. What does any of this even mean? You begin to question things that you never questioned. You begin to look for purpose in things. You're like, what? I've been spending all my time over here focused on this. Does this even matter? You begin to question all manner of life because your equilibrium has been thrown off. You've been thrown for a curveball, and you just begin to question, does anything even make sense? Am I talking to you? Girl, if I'm talking to you, DM me. Tell me, girl, number 4 was me, is me. Let me know. Okay. Number 5, remember 4, you begin to question, what does any of this mean? Y'all, number 5, you begin to question yourself. Wait a minute. Did I do something wrong? Could I have done something different? What's wrong with me? You begin to feel guilt. Even if it's the loss of a loved one, you begin to feel guilt. Like, and a lot of times it is a irrational guilt. Like, you had no control over that, but our brains will find a way to make us responsible for it. So you begin to question yourself. And listen, when you work with me in coaching or counseling, we do, this piece of hair is driving me crazy, y'all. Y'all know we keep it real over here. I couldn't focus. But when you work with me in coaching or counseling, we do a lot of work looking inward. And it can be hard work. One of my clients bought a whole hand towel to her last set. She said, I'm sick of bringing tissue because it's not enough. She bought a whole hand towel to wipe her tears, y'all, because the work is hard and we're digging. So there is a part of the journey that eventually you can use, depending on what loss it is or what loss it was, that you can look at your contribution depending on what type of loss we're talking about. But there becomes an obsession with placing all of the responsibility and blame on you. All right. Remember, we're just talking about what are some of the common things that show up on the path of grief. Number 6, this is for my people of faith. Where are all my God girls? Where are all my God girls? If you are a God girl, just put hashtag God's girl in the comment section. Put hashtag God's girl. This is for you, girl. If you are a woman of faith, I want to help you understand what begins to happen. The enemy begins to make accusations against God in your heart. He didn't come through for you. Why would God let this happen? Do you even believe this stuff? You know you were praying and it still went left. You did everything that God wanted you to do and he still didn't come through. The enemy begins to make accusations in your heart against God. Then you start to feel guilty. Again, that guilt shows up. You begin to feel guilty because you're even having these thoughts and feelings. Girl, I'm here to tell you, if nobody else told you, you ain't crazy. That is a part of the process. When that shows up, girl, go to the Word. Go to the Word. First, write down every lie that the enemy is using to accuse God. Write it down. Just do a mind dump. Take his words and use them against him. God didn't come through. God left you hanging. You did what you were supposed to do and God didn't come through. And then find scripture that refute those lies. You with me? All right. Number 7, what comes up on this journey of healing, this journey of grief that is absolutely a common experience is anger and resentment. Sometimes the anger and resentment is towards a person, maybe if it was a significant loss, or whether it's that ex, whether it's your boss, anger and resentment towards them, and sometimes anger and resentment with yourself. Remember, we talked about that a little bit before. But you become so angry and resentful, everybody can get it. It don't even have to be anybody associated with the situation. Anybody can get it, right? Because on this journey, you have all these conflicting emotions and they get jumbled up and they spew out in ways that you did not expect it. Now, this last one, number 8, is another tricky one that I want to be gentle with. One of the common experiences that can happen on this journey towards healing, you have a significant loss, and in a weird way, you feel a sense of relief. Maybe you knew that this job wasn't really for you, but you didn't want to quit it. But so when you got fired, it was like, I shouldn't be okay because I got to pay the bills, but I feel a pressure off. Maybe you knew the relationship was toxic. You just didn't have the courage to end it because you were so afraid. So them ending it just... Maybe you'd been caretaking for somebody for a long time and you were just exhausted and you know they were exhausted. And so while you want them here, you feel a sense of, okay, now we can move to the next phase of our life. But that feeling of relief can again bring up that sneaky feeling of guilt. But I want to normalize it for you, sis. You might feel relief. All right, y'all, those are the common experiences that come up when you are journeying through the valley or the process of grief. Those are the ones that I wanted to share with you. But do you have any that you're like, Robin, girl, you got to talk about this? Let me know in the comment section or DM me on Instagram, Robin May Online, and let me know. We will look into it and see if we need to do a part 3 of this conversation. Now, don't miss part 3. Did I say a part 3? I'm in a part 4. Did I say a part 3 or part 4? I can't remember. But we might need to continue this journey towards healing well. If this helped you, will you share it with other people so that we can make sure we are all on the path of healing well? I'll see you next week.